The Home Assistant release 2023.7 was a really big release, just like the last one. And with it came a bunch of new features and fun stuff to play with. I'm going to focus on one or two of those right now in this video. There's plenty of other videos out there on all of the new stuff. You can check those out. Specifically, the Home Assistant team does one on their release party. I'm going to talk about conversations. So let's get into having a conversation. So when I say conversations, what am I talking about? See what I did there? Conversations in Home Assistant basically means that services can now respond. They're talking about this being an advanced feature, and it's a huge step forward in the Home Assistant. Allows for a lot of possibilities. So you have to use your imagination there and define what you want to do. Used to be that calling a service or an automation was just basically tell something to do something with no feedback. Now you can get feedback. So what's the point of having service data respond back or services respond back with data? It can be used to ask for information from a device or service. One of the examples they use and what I'm going to show you in this video is how you can use Home Assistant to tell you what's going on for the day, in addition to getting some other weather information back from Home Assistant. And I'm going to use this, do this with two new services, the conversation.process service and the calendar.list events. And I'm also going to use this blueprint as a basis for what I'm doing today. I'm going to go through the blueprint and kind of explain what it's doing and show you some other information that needs to happen as well. So jumping over to my blog here, let's talk about some things that you need to have for the blueprint to function. You need the Home Assistant version 2023.7 or later, later. You need the OpenAI integration. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit and some more details about that. Some sort of weather integration. I happen to use OpenWeatherMap, and also I use the National Weather Service here in the US, and then some sort of notification path. And you need to have at least one calendar integration in Home Assistant. You can either use something like the Google Calendar integration, or you can have one of the built-in Home Assistant calendars that this will tie into. So let's talk about the OpenAI integration. It allows you to talk to the new hotness, the new OpenAI stuff that's out there. It requires that you have an API key. The API key does cost money. This is a paid service. And one of the things I point out in the blog and the things they point out here is that you need to make sure you monitor your costs in the OpenAI portal. Now, I was playing around with this yesterday and did a bunch of stuff with it, and it cost me about 2 pennies to do all of the work that I did with it. So if you're calling it a couple times a day, no big issue. It'll be just fine for you. If you set a hard limit on the usage, I think I set mine to $2 US. If I hit more than $2 US, it starts to warn me, and then it'll start blocking things a little bit later on down the road. So just keep that in mind when you're using this OpenAI conversation stuff. It does require a paid integration. All right, so the weather integration we talked about, there's a whole bunch of integrations you can use with weather. Just choose your favorite. And then a notification path. The default is notify.notify in the blueprint, and that notifies my phone using the Home Assistant Companion app. So if you want to go that route, you can do that. You can also use smart speakers and stuff like that, which I'll show you here in a little bit. All right. And I talked about the usage limits as well. Just a note about weather integrations, a lot of them require an API key, and that's fine. National Weather Service here in the US does require an API key. OpenWeatherMap does. The API key on the National Weather Service is basically free text. They recommend you put your email in there. There are limits to calling these things. So in general, just make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing with the APIs that you call, so you know that you're not hitting usage limits, or you start running into costs for things that you didn't think you were going to have to pay for. Or if you are paying for it, you don't go over that or generate a huge bill. So let's talk about integrations. Installing all of these things is as simple as installing a regular integration in Home Assistant. You come down here and you click on the Add Integration button. And for example, you would search for OpenAI. If you click on OpenAI, number one, you notice it's a cloud service. Just keep that in mind. If the cloud or internet goes down or its service goes down, then you lose some of that functionality. But you would click on the API key here or you would insert the API key that you get from the OpenAI conversation website. In addition to that, if you want to add a weather integration, if you don't have one, then you would just do weather. You could choose one. I have Open Weather Map, and you can put the API key in here. You would choose hourly for Open Weather Map because that's the free tier that they have. Again, there's API limits for all these things, so read through those on their websites. You have the link to do that right here. So you install these integrations. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. There's plenty of videos of mine and others that talk about installing an integration in Home Assistant. So once you have that Home Assistant integration installed for OpenAI and the weather and Notify, a notification path, then we can get started with the next step. Now over here, it talks about this blueprint that Alan Porter has created. So I'm going to copy the link address for that. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to hit my shortcut key up here for blueprints. And it's going to take me directly over to blueprints. And that's under settings, automations, and blueprints. You just click on blueprints here. Hard to say. And then you come down here and you click on import a blueprint. And then you would paste the URL in here. And then when you click on preview, it's going to show you the preview content. So you can look through here and see if this is a blueprint that you want to import. And it is. And then you would click import blueprint. Now I already have that here. You can see I have conversation agent agenda notification. And that's what we're going to use. Now you can do a couple things here. You can create an automation directly from this blueprint, or you can go back over to automations and you can click on create automation, and then you can select it from this blueprint here. So if I click on that now, I have a whole bunch of things that I need to fill in. The blueprint to use is a conversation agent notification blueprint. That's the one I just talked about. This particular blueprint has a notification time. This is the way that this one is set up. And at this time of the day, whatever you set here, it's going to send you the information that's generated by this service call and the conversation that is part of this service call. You need to choose a calendar. And then under calendar event duration, this is how many hours ahead to look for the upcoming calendar events. Right now, it's defaulted to 18 hours. Your weather entity is going to be whichever one you want to choose from. If you have more than one, I'll use Open Weather Map. The home zone entity is what you have defined in Home Assistant for your zone. So if you have on the mapping, you have coordinates or whatever set for your home zone, you can set that. But if you want to know what the weather at the work or school or whatever else, you can do that as well. And then this is important here. This is a conversation agent. This has to be OpenAI for the conversation blueprint to work. So I'm going to choose OpenAI here. And the reason why is under this conversation agent prompt, let me pull it up here. You will see a whole bunch of information that explains to the OpenAI agent what it should be doing. So it's telling it to generate text for a notification that will be sent to the smartphone. And it tells it what kind of personality that is. You can play with this if you want to. If you're familiar with OpenAI and you want it to talk a certain way, do a certain thing, you can certainly do that right here and update all of this information on how you want it to play out. And then once you're done, you click on save and you give it a name. And I'll just call it something like that. We'll click on save. And now if you want to test it out, you can go ahead and run this by clicking the run over here. Now this is going to make a call to all of the APIs that you have set up. So if you have a strict limit on your OpenAPI usage, then this will add to that rate or add to that usage that you have set there. So if you're doing this and you play with it 20 or 30 times, just keep in mind, you need to monitor the costs on the OpenAI portal. All right, so I'm going to click on run. You won't see anything here, but what you will see is a notification, and it takes about, 10 or so seconds, I guess, for it to generate all of that stuff. And then you'll get a notification on your phone, and that notification will look something like this. And that's it. Now you've set up the conversation agent agenda with information based on this blueprint. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things that you can do here to make this a little bit more customizable. And remember that this goes to my phone, but I want to change it to something else. I want to send it to a smart speaker. So I'm going to, and one thing to notice here, if I erase all of it, it just fills it back out. So don't go all the way back. But I want to send it to one of my smart speakers. So I'm going to send it to this one. And all I did was change the name, and I'm going to save it now. Everything else stays the same. It will still function and run at this time of the day But rather than going to my phone or my companion app, it's now going to go to this notification channel. Now you have to keep in mind that the notification channel you choose must support this type of output. This happens to be text it generates, so it'll just speak that text through the smart speaker. So let me save that, and then I'm going to run it and we'll listen to what it says. So let me run that now.
Good morning. Here's your daily update. Today, the weather in your area is rainy with a temperature of 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't forget to grab your umbrella before heading out. You don't have any upcoming events on your main calendar for the next 18 hours. Have a great day ahead.
And just like that, we have a different notification channel where we can send that where we want it to go to. Okay, so now we have done that. We have created a conversation with Home Assistant that gives us a service call and then returns back the data from that service call. But what I want to talk about now is, okay, so we have this notification time. I want to do what's called a sentence trigger. And I'm going to use the sentence trigger to do the same thing rather than the time. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. The first way might be to go into creating a new automation and then taking part of that blueprint, because why reinvent the wheel? Thank you, Alan Porter, for making that blueprint. Take the portion of that blueprint that's not the trigger, and then using that trigger as the command sentence or sentence trigger as the command that actually fires off that automation. But I'm going to do it a little bit different way. I'm going to go ahead and copy the automation, and I'm going to update it with a few fields that allows me to input different command sentences or sentence triggers so that I can specify whatever I want it to say. And if I use this blueprint for different things, then I can just change that trigger and say, tell me tomorrow, tell me today, because then you can adjust the time in that window of how many hours ahead you want the calendar to give you events and that kind of thing. So let's jump in and do a little bit of work with YAML and that kind of thing. And by the way, don't get scared of YAML. It's not scary. If it does make you a little bit queasy, all right, this part is not for you. Just use the standard blueprint, have it send it to where you want it to at whatever time. However, it's not hard. We're going to just change a couple of fields. So let's get into that right now. All right, so the first thing is we're going to go back over here to our Home Assistant here, and we're going to go into Terminal. Okay, in the Terminal directory, or in the terminal, make sure you're in the proper directory. You want to be in config, blueprints, automation, Home Assistant. And if I look at that, I will see that I have the notify agent agenda.yaml. You may have other automations in here. I don't know, but this is the one we're interested in today. So I'm going to copy that using the copy command. So copy notify agent agenda YAML, and I'm going to just use the tab key to autocomplete. And then I'm just going to add a couple of things on here. So with sentence .yaml. So now I've created a new file called notify agent agenda with sentence.yaml, and I'm going to modify that. You can use whatever your favorite editor is. I'm going to use Vim or VI. And there's a couple sections we're interested in here. First of all, you want to change the name of the blueprint so that you can tell the difference between this one and the other one using sentence trigger. And I'm going to leave the author as Alan Porter. It's his blueprint. So I'm just going to leave it here with just a few modifications. A couple of things I want to change. I need to create an input called command sentence. That's the sentence I want it to say or that I want to use when I want to fire off the automation. So the name is going to be command sentence again. You can put a description in here if you want to. And the selector is, or the, you can put a description in here, which we probably want to do so that we understand what we're supposed to fill out in the box. And this is sentence to listen for. And then we want to put default, and that's going to be something like, tell me my day. So this creates a thing, and we're actually going to get rid of the notify time as well, because we don't need that anymore. So the command that will fire off this automation or this blueprint will be the command sentence. All right, so that's that part. And then we come down here lower into the actual where the work is done. And we have the trigger. You can see now it's platform time. Well, we don't want to have platform time. We want to have something else here. We want to have our command for the command sentence. So we're going to do that by changing the trigger to conversation rather than the time. So we'll put in conversation here. And then the input, instead of saying at, we want that to say command, because that is what we're waiting for. So also notify time needs to be changed, and this will be command sentence because that's what we specified as the input above. This is stuff that you do typically in a blueprint. If you've ever created a blueprint, this probably makes sense to you. If you've ever done any programming, this makes sense to you. If this doesn't make any sense to you at all, and you're completely confused, I can try to help you in Discord or somewhere else. Or you don't even have to do this. Create a new automation completely and have it do this stuff in the new automation without having to mess with these files. All right, so we've got that completed now. And I'm looking to see what else we might want to change here. I'm going to get rid of the source URL for now in this one. I don't know if it matters, but let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to comment it out because this is actually not the same as what it was before. And so I don't want to kind of confuse things with that. All right, I think that's it. So I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go back into Home Assistant. I'm going to do a quick reload of the automations so that it will pull in that new file that we just created. So I'm going to do a quick reload. And then I'm going to create an automation based on that new thing we just said. Now, remember, it's conversation agent agenda with sentence. This is the original one, still by Alan Porter, because I want to give him credit for that. And you'll notice that there's a few changes. The first one is command sentence is now replacing the time trigger. And so if I say this series of words through the assist, then you have to use the assist function, the voice function of Home Assistant, then it will tell me the notification. Now, one of the things that you have to keep in mind here is that your notify service name is where this is going to go to. So you can call this automation using the sentence, but that doesn't mean it's going to come back to the thing you called it from. I'm going to keep working on figuring that part out because I want the conversation to reply back to me on the thing that I actually got it from. And that's probably something that can be done. I just haven't got that far yet. So just remember, whenever you call this, it's going to put it wherever that you do this. So if I'm on a device, such as my tablet or my phone, I say, tell me my day through the assist function, then it will send it out through the notification service that I have here. All right. Everything else is, for the most part, the same. You fill in the calendar entity, the weather entity, the home zone entity, and all the rest. So let me just do that. I'm going to fill in my calendar entity here. The duration is still 18 hours. My weather entity will be open weather map. My home zone will be home. And my conversation agent must still be OpenAI conversation. I'm going to save that. I'm going to call it daily agenda with sentence. And for those with OCD, that will be a lowercase g. All right, save that. And now if I go into Assist, I will be able to set this out to my phone. All right, so let me pull up Firefox because Chrome doesn't allow me to do this in the microphone, but I can do that in Firefox. And I click on the Assist button up here and I say, tell me my day. It'll take a couple seconds to go out and process it. Then it says done. And then that will actually go to my phone as an alert because that's how I have it set up right now to notify. So that's how you would use this. You would use the assist function. If you have a wall tablet, for example, that's near one of your smart speakers or your Sonos or whatever you use to notify, you can then take and say with the assist button, you can say, tell me my day or whatever, and then your stuff would come out through your notification channel. Now you can, in the case of the Amazon stuff, set up a whole house zone if you have multiple speakers. And then you could do that from any tablet where you have this set up, tell me my day from the assist function. And then it would go out and it would alert all of your speakers and speak the, the daily agenda and whatnot for everyone to hear for the day. So those are some options you can do. I think this is a really interesting and useful feature in Home Assistant, and it's going to continue to get better. People are going to build stuff all the time on it, and it's just going to continue to evolve. As the year of the voice continues in Home Assistant, I expect more and greater things to come out of this. So that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions down below or in Discord. I will try to do my best to help you when I can. I thank those that are supporting me through either channel subscriptions or Patreon or Ko-fi or those areas. It is extremely, extremely helpful to me at this point, and I really, really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for that. All right, we will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.